Thank you. So I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll take a motion that the agenda for December 13th, 2023 special meeting of the Strathcona Gardens Commission be adopted as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Second. All in favor? None of you opposed? It's carried. I don't think we have any petitions or delegations today, so we're moving right into the staff report. Is it preferable that we make the motion first and then have the report from staff?
Motion received.
Okay, so I'll make, someone make the motion that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, it's carried. So we're going to have some staff come along and make a nice presentation.
Yeah, thanks. Edith, you could pull it up. I just want to give a little background history of, what our process is, a reminder of to the folks here. And I think it's at the tail end of it more than the start. Just look the next slide for me for a sec. Okay, thanks. So just a reminder kind of what we have a history of doing here at the Regional District for the board, the committees, the East, the Gardens is we kind of have a process we adopted from Campbell River several years ago in terms of basis base. So anything you see in the green that we have here is base operations. So these are things that, pay staff, the electrical bill, everything that we have, and no operational or capital changes to it. And then we try and show you beyond that in the blue what the additions will be. This is a little bit unique this year with the gardens is that because last year we had a increase that we divided in half. So what we typically come is we say we have three sections in it. We have the green here, which is just base operations. We'll have a blue, typically sliver in there that shows what CPI and ongoing operational costs that we don't have much option with current service levels to change. And then beyond that, beyond the scope of our operations, what additions that we are requesting from the commission or the board or committees that do we get support approval for them to add them to base operations. So the gardens, again, being a little bit unique, you'll see the additional, $82, which is typically a fairly high number on the increase in base operations. But if you flip to the next slide, Mike can explain here what that is based on our conversations and direction we got last year. So on current operations, just at a high level, we have actually take out the borrowing requirement for our capital project. We actually have no increase to the base operations budget. So we kind of wanted to dissect what this $82 in the additional cost is, and it's 100% related to the borrowing for the capital project that we talked about last year. And Mike can explain, you probably have in your mind, it was about $60, 65, thank you, and it's 82, and Mike can kind of dissect here for you why it's gone from 65 to 82.
Thanks. So first is clarification. The 82-87 is just the average between areas D and Campbell River. So the majority of it, the 54-56, that's the number you saw in last year's presentation for the that amount of debt at the prevailing interest rates, which were 3.83% at the time. The $15.06 is to account for the higher principal amount. So in the prior year's budget, there was a grant included, and that's still in play. But this budget is for the full amount of the bylaw, which is the $64.7 million. So the project currently in the budget is 100% funded by reserves and debt. And then the pink part on top of the 1376 is just to account for the higher interest on the $64 million. So that's an 11.5% increase higher than last year. So we'll see a bit of a bump to get the full amount of interest. And that is at the prevailing rates when the project act, and this assumes, the budget assumes essentially we borrow all the money on January 1 of next year, but the project won't start, so there's going to be some delays. But chances are this is going to be several smaller loans because we'll be boring under the short-term facility and then locking those rates in a prevailing rate. So like I say, when I did the budget document, the prevailing rate was 4.27. Now it's down to 4.25, and it fluctuates daily. It's quite erratic actually in today's market. But so that is the vast majority of the increase you're seeing is just for the debt and those three components.
So if I can, just to kind of dissect it a little bit more, just to show you how impactful the interest rates are from our discussion last year when we sat here. The rate was 3.83 and going to 4.27. What it sits at today is almost $14 home. Just that's a change in interest. But this I'm going to characterize as a worst case scenario. So the 1506 you see in there, that is still a grant in play. So we have funded it through the operations budget, but should we be successful in that grant, that $15 comes out. So we're still optimistic and hopeful in terms of receiving the grant. So that's where that $15 comes out from. And again, it can be removed. Now, I'm going to kind of explain again how this is a worst case is what we would do in local government when we borrow money. So we have, we're going to tender this project in the next couple months. So we have several $1 million in the bank. We will, and I think we could all likely agree that interest rates are at a peak right now. They're probably as high as they're going to get, and they're trending down, and they're going to trend down quite likely in the next couple of years. We would first use our own money that we have in the bank to pay our bills. So let's say we have $10 million. We won't borrow any money. We'll go use our $10 million. And as we're doing that, hopefully rates come down. And then what we do is we go borrow in bits and pieces, and we do short-term borrowing, and we pay interest only. So we'll never, until the project is complete and the final nail is in there, we won't go to the bank and say, okay, let's borrow the money. The farther we can push it out to, it's very likely that the rates will be the lowest. So as we go through construction, we short-term borrow, we pay interest only, and as rates are trending down, we push that out as far as we can. We complete the building, and then we do a long-term borrowing. So that long-term borrowing, I'm going to say, when we do it 2-3 years from now, the final long-term borrowing, the interest rate is likely going to be much less than 4.27. So the hope is that this pushes us up to the high level, and then any additional costs that we incur can be absorbed through either getting a grant or lower interest rates when we go to get it. So in our mind, this is kind of a worst-case scenario. So that's kind of the explanation for the increase in the operations budget beyond basis base. And just to give you an example of if we didn't have this, we would literally have nothing. There would be no increase in the operations guard. So then going one step further, what we do again is saying, okay, beyond base, do we have things additionally that we want to present to the commission and the board that say, increase the base budget, explain to you what those are, and explain to you how much the impact they'll have. So you want to flip it to the next slide. I'm going to transfer this over to Robin, but before that, because I know we tend to talk in terms of cost per thousand rate. Here, what I like to do, because you have so many different pots of money and different people and communities contributing to it, what we tend to do here is represent things in real dollars per home. So when you see, for example, this one is a business case for a new driver at the Gardens, and we represent it in the cost per home total. So that is not a per thousand number, that is a whole number. So that is the impact of this will be 25 cents a home per year, just because the number is so low. I don't want you thinking that's a per thousand number. So, Robin, to you.
Thank you through the CAO to the chair and the commissioners. This is the first of 3 business cases we want to present today. We have positions within the Gardens that have a class 4 driver's license requirement in it for programs. We want to expand our programs. We want to create the bus that we have, we want to create that to be like a neutral cost not a burden on our budget. And to do that, we feel that if we include a couple of part-time drivers, we can have programmers really focus on programming, looking after the kids, and utilizing that bus for more than just the skating school bus. Craig can give you a little background on the skating school bus, and then Sarah's going to just add to what we're looking at in the future to support the City of Campbell River and Area D.
Thank you, Robin. So the skating school bus, it was a program that we piloted back in 2012, and it gives parents the opportunity to sign up their children to be picked up after school, brought to the arena to participate in drop-in skating, the lessons that we offer both on the ice and in the pool. And the pickup is alternated between all the elementary schools and the 2 middle schools in Campbell River. And they can sign up for these programs or for this program until the day of at noon, after which the sign up is cut off. And our staff, they communicate those class lists each day with the schools individually. So the schools are aware that we're coming and they know which children are to be picked up. And if for whatever reason those children aren't there, we know about it before we get to the school.
So Craig talked a little bit about how we're going to bring more children to Strathcona Gardens, and my area of focus has been on how we're going to take people outside of Strathcona Gardens and encourage recreation in all areas within the region, in Area D and the City of Campbell River. So this past year we've focused on training some of our lifeguard staff in becoming waterfront and surf certified instructor trainers. And what we could do in 2024 is roll that out. So we're taking participants from Strathcona Gardens and out to the local area lakes and beaches and doing waterfront training there for the community. So creating more waterfront lifeguards, creating more surf option lifeguards, and also potentially providing lifeguarded services for the community in those spaces. And on top of that, we can see running fitness programs in Area D, for example. We've got a beautiful park in that area that is perfect for yoga in the park and for fitness programs. And to be able to either collect participants from Strathcona Gardens and take them out to Hagel Park, or to collect area residents in Area D and bring them to Hagel Park for those programs and services.
So again, I don't know if folks remember, but we had from our Growing Communities Fund and our capital project, we had a bus that we added to the program. And what we're trying to do is run more programs, and transportation is an inhibitor to having participation, and trying to make that at best cost neutral. We aren't there yet, and so what we're saying is if the commission supports this, over a 5-year plan, it's about $27,000. It means 25 cents a home. But we'll continue to work at trying to embed the transportation costs into these programs and make it neutral, expanding the programs, expanding the use of the programs in the community, and eliminating the transportation as an inhibitor. So typically what we've done in the past, if the commission supports it, we have a resolution, we embed that in the draft budget that you'll see the board and the commission at East on January 24th, and you'll see the impact of it. We anticipate it's 25 cents. We typically estimate fairly conservatively, so then when you'll see this draft budget, you see $82 for the gardens, 25% for this. I anticipate those numbers will actually be lower. It's not in our best interest to give you an optimistic number and then come back higher. They're historically lower, so we'll embed this in there, and then you can see the outcome of those on January 24th and decide if that's palatable or not, if you want to continue with it. So at this point, if the commission supports it, we have a summary recommendation. If that's supported, we'll put that in the draft budget, and you'll see what that looks like on January 24th, but we anticipate that will mean an additional 25 cents a home.
Okay, is there any questions from commissioners on the first presentation with the various increases and or the first business plan?
Just wanted to make a couple of comments with regards to the bus driver position. I think it's great. interesting this afternoon when we get into the regional board meeting that there's a correspondent that came from Quadra Island where that's exactly what they're trying to recommend is that why don't we have a bus service so that we could bring kids over from Quadra and utilize the gardens. So again, I'm hoping that we can talk about that this afternoon at the regional board meeting. It's very important. I mean, you know, that is one of the challenges with working people is that they don't have time to take their kids to places and yet they want to do that. So I think this is something that we can easily support. Thank you.
Anyone further? Yes.
And I just wanted to add that we currently, and for a number of years now, have provided bus service from the Quadra Ferry to Strathcona Gardens for summer programs.
So my comment is talking to my sister. She had both of her children use this program, and it's actually a supplement to childcare. I mean, that's how she saw it, which is you get your kids picked up after school and they've got a good activity in there and they become skaters and hockey players and such. Does it run from September all the way into June, or is there a limitation on this?
Yeah, typically it has followed the ice season, and it has typically it's grown to where it's gone through the whole school year into the end of June.
Excellent. Any other further questions rising? Okay, I guess we're on to the next business plan, because the motion is, we can either do it individually, the motions, or wait till the end. So we're still on the receipt, so why don't we just keep on with the business plans?
And this is the second of three just business case studies. This is just to add some budget for event security. Just we're seeing an increasing amount of youth in the facility on particularly Friday nights during the junior hockey games, and just the presence of the security personnel has, we had a few incidents when the season started. Just having the presence in there is kind of offset the vandalism that we've been incurring with the number of youths. We did work with the junior hockey club and the RCMP to sort of come up with some solutions. And just having the presence of security with their identifiable workwear seems to have curbed a lot of the youth are still gathering, but the negative outcomes have gone away. So we want to just maintain at least one security person throughout the junior hockey season.
Okay, any questions from the commissioners? Yes, Mr. Kerr.
Thank you. Have you tried to address this in any other way other than through security?
We have currently the three managers at Strathcona Gardens do take a shift on Friday nights. It's just that we don't wear security jackets. We don't have search authorities that security does. They have specific training that allows them to do bag searches, that sort of thing. This dorm have event staff, not security staff. They don't have certain authorities that security personnel do. And we did work with the RCMP, and depending on the previous week, if we see an increase, the youth liaison officer in town does attend Friday night hockey games to help with that. But, we feel that the security has made a difference.
So when you're talking about search, you're talking about intoxication and that sort of thing. Is that what's causing some of this?
Correct. Yeah. No, there was, the first incident we had about 60 to 70 youth. There was half a dozen RCMP called to the facility just with the number of youth. And I think they seized about 18 to 20 bottles of alcohol in and around the back of the facility in the Pinecrest field. And so just the presence of the security and the bag checks has sort of taken any of that unwanted behavior out of the facility and away from the facility.
Yeah, that sounds to me like it's an organized kind of organize, ahead of time. People are coming there with the expectation that something's going to happen, and that's when you get that kind of numbers. But I'm just wondering if there's a case for. I mean, I'm sure the RCMP are, watching gangs and that kind of stuff. They got a better handle on that, what's happening in the community. But, it is happening around a hockey game, and I would assume that, the hockey game is maybe the draw too. Some way of addressing it from a hockey, like having somebody on ice talking to the audience about it, or addressing it, or some representatives from sports, or just a different way of dealing with it, rather than just strictly drinking and security. That vicious circle that happens. I mean, I think a lot of us probably understand that quite well. If there's a different way of addressing the problem, maybe, like you say, maybe it's been solved and it's not an issue anymore.
Well, I've been spending a lot of Friday nights there, and I would say the percentage of youth that were just hanging out to the percentage that are now coming and watching the hockey game and participating in what the facility offers, I would say 25% of them have moved away from the hanging out in the hallways to going to the event. And typically in the event, there aren't any issues. It's just typically in the hallways. And then during intermissions, but the frequency has dropped to the point where I think last couple of weekends, there's been no incidents or concerns.
Sounds like great news. Okay, thanks.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, we have one more business case, which is summer students.
This is a business case that was sort of developed just regarding, we had challenges out of COVID for recruiting, and just seeing some of the misguided youth in the facility on Friday nights. I don't know if the community has awareness what Strathcona Gardens has to offer. So we wanted to, and we do reach out to the schools regarding recruiting. We just wanted to give select individuals an opportunity to come and work at Strathcona Gardens, see what there is to offer. Maybe there are kids in this town that aren't sure what they want to do with their career. There's options for maintenance, programming, professional rehabilitation specialists. There's options, and it's a good place to work, and there are good jobs. I just don't know if everybody's aware of it and have that in their career planning folder. And so we thought that we would like to really start this program and then just sort of get that out in the community, what we have to offer.
And this funding program is 50% paid for by the employment program, is it not?
Yes, it is a guaranteed program for about 50% funding, and then there are, once you start the program, there are options for even further funding to promote youth and starting to work and sort of development. And Sarah could maybe add a little more to that. She did the research on the grants.
So the 50% grant funding is the base grant funding that municipal recreation service providers are eligible for, and our colleagues in other regions are successful in obtaining those grants year after year, which leads us to believe that we would be as well. And then on top of that, there's additional employer grant training and other grants that are applicable to candidates that meet specific criteria. For example, First Nations youth are eligible for additional training, and other minority groups. So once we had our summer student persons selected each season, then we may be eligible for additional grant funding. And we seek the full amount rather than the reduced amount, so that we're not grant dependent in order to offer that position then to that candidate.
Excellent. Any questions from commissioners? Yes, thank you. Yes, Commissioner Quinlan.
Just a question with the collective agreement. This doesn't affect the collective agreement with the union. It falls under part-time employment.
We would still need to work with the union, just as far as not taking jobs, specific pay around union dues. But we do feel that this is kind of a PR move for the union as well, and I think to grow like awareness of what's in your community. So we don't think it'll be a hurdle. It'll just be a step.
Yes, Commissioner Rice.
Just wanted to comment, with regards to the union, my experience with unions is that they typically do not want summer-type jobs like this. And the reason being is, again, they feel that it takes away from the rest of the bargaining units. So I'd be quite interested to know if you are going to have success with that. I mean, I love the idea of being able to hire kids. As a former teacher, I was always looking to find where I could have my students do things. So, I mean, this is fantastic. I just hope that the union doesn't create that hurdle.
Previous to putting this together, we did have a group reach out from the Yukon and the Northwest Territories about spending some time in our facility to learning about recreation, and that just the timing was off. They only gave us less than a week's notice for the start of their program. We did have some discussions with the union, and they were very open to it as long as we mutually agree upon the structure.
Any further comments? I mean, my feedback is on top of having a summer student, which is great, creating volunteer positions if possible to accommodate the kids' graduating requirements, because that's how my daughter ended up doing her career. She volunteered at the museum, then she got a job into the Canada Summer Works program at the museum, and then on and on. And it's a nice flow through for anyone developing skills to have even the volunteer, but even more hurdles when you have a unionized environment, but hopefully you guys can figure it out. Okay, so I guess we're now at that point, without even Mr. Yates by my side, that we have another motion, unless there's further questions from the commissioners. Okay, that the business cases for the Class 4 part-time drivers, event security, and summer student positions be approved for inclusion in the draft 2024-2028 financial plan for presentation at the January 24th, 2024 meeting of the board. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. I think we're ready to go into the last motion. May I have a motion for termination, please?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried.